Hi, I'm Blake Buse, and I'm your marketing technology maestro.
Hey, I'm Greg Marshall. I'm your social media marketing strategist.
And this is the Modern Marketers Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got our audio is actually working on this one. As last time we forgot to double check it, and I thought it was a good one.
Yeah. It's good. It's good to be back. I think this is the first one we're actually recording in the new year. I mean, we've recorded some before the new year, and they launched after the new year. But now we're actually recording in the new year. So all of the holiday season's over. It's now 2022 officially for us. And advertising is going to, I think advertising is going to take a bunch of changes are going to happen this year. Doubt. And you were just telling me right before you got in, this big admission.
Yeah,
which that Facebook.
I couldn't believe it. That's why I think I had to do a double take, because I thought I was like, is this real? So there was a big notification on one of the ad accounts when I went on there. And essentially, it was Facebook saying, we understand that tracking is not as accurate, and and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically that you're seeing worse results tracking wise than you ever have. That's essentially what it was saying in a very nice way.
I'm sure they ran that through a whole team of PR people, and lawyers. Way we could admit something, but not open ourselves up to any sort of legal action for having a terrible product.
And that's basically what it felt like, right? Is I was reading it and it was saying, but we're working very hard to fix this. And so with that being said, I think a lot of customers and people that are using ads are coming to the realization, which was something that I felt like I would communicate with clients a lot, which is, and we've done this for years, right? Where even when we thought Facebook was super accurate, it still wasn't 100% accurate. Yeah. And so it's just now less accurate, which, is what are your thoughts on that? Like, for me, I know what I see, and it doesn't really bother me that much, because there's a way around things. Yeah. It actually makes it a little bit more where you have to, I guess, be a little more skilled at what you're doing. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of thoughts here. First and foremost, I feel a little bit like Reagan in the Cold War when he said trust but verify.
Yes. Yep.
Except for, I don't even know if I would entirely trust reported data into ad platforms. In fact, none of the ad platforms, right? Just the nature of how data works. It's never 100% accurate. So you always need to kind of verify it with some hard data, right?
Yeah.
So if
and
Facebook,
when you say hard data, what does that mean?
If Facebook is saying you got 10 purchases, you look into your actual purchase system and see, did you get 10 purchases that day, right? And it's hard to pair up those purchases with a Facebook ad from your purchase system, unless you're maybe dumping some tracking codes into your purchasing system. Then you can, but you just want to kind of double check that. The second thought that comes to my mind is I think we're going to start seeing a lot more companies turn more and more to good media buyers and advertisers, because Facebook used to be a very easy platform for an entrepreneur to hop in there and kind of do their own thing. Yep. But so many things are changing with how tracking works and how everything works, that media buyers are going to have to step up their game. Yep. And the media buyers that are fastest at learning the new things and fastest at testing things are going to be the media buyers that are going to succeed in 2022 and beyond. And more companies are going to hold their media buyers to higher standards of communication and talking through what's going on and explaining those things. And more companies are going to look for media buyers to help them with this, because it's becoming more and more time consuming for them to manage it themselves.
Well, what I'm seeing just from an inquiry standpoint, I'm definitely having more people reach out needing help with their Facebook ads, right? And what that tells me is it is becoming harder and harder, meaning the novice, where in the past you could literally just go in. Remember, you could even set up your pixel without having to do website, domain verifications, and doing and setting up your aggregated events. You didn't have to do any of that, right?
Right.
You get a piece of code or a number, and you put it on your website, and you start running ads, and essentially the pixel algorithm did all the work.
Right.
Right? Now it's actually you have to do most of it. And so because now there's more people reaching out needing help, that right there tells me that it's just getting harder to track. It's getting harder to track, and you can't get away with like the easy stuff that you could have back in the day. Now it's actually you have to think this through and come up with a real strategy.
Right.
And one of the things that I've been thinking about recently that may change, and since you understand the back end data more, you can verify this. But in my opinion, I don't see any of this tracking that we've had in the past ever coming back. Like,
No.
I don't think there will ever be a time where you can track every piece of behavior. And when I say track, meaning off platforms,
Right.
right? So like if you're on Facebook or on Google or on YouTube, I believe that's not going anywhere because they like own that and they can track all that. But meaning the behaviors that you made when you went off of the platforms.
So, and what we talk about, what Greg means by that is when you click on a link to take you off of Facebook, now you're on, say, my website, blakebeast.com.
Yep.
I used to be able to track and send a lot of data back into Facebook using their pixel. It just kind of did it automatically.
Yep.
Now that data is limited. Facebook doesn't see as much of what's going on when someone's going around on my site that they did 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yep. So I feel like one of the big changes that will happen or strategies or moves that you'll have to do is get really good at in-app.
Yes.
Retargeting, tracking, setting up. So the fundamentals are always the same, right? Build awareness, engage with them, and then convert them.
Yeah.
But instead of, you could, just a few years ago, not even 2-3 years ago, you could actually skip a lot of that. You could just go straight for purchase, like just buy.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to warm people up and use kind of the quote unquote old school methods. But I feel like we're gonna be forced to do that. We're gonna be forced to go back to that. And that's where it becomes a little more challenging because you're losing your teammate basically, the pixel.
Yeah, and like I think what a lot of people realize is well, I think about it this way. This is going to make lazy advertisers drop the platform, and unfortunately, businesses that are a little bit less sophisticated with advertising are going to maybe just drop online advertising altogether.
Yep.
But what that means is you're going to have more sophisticated advertisers on platform and everything like that. But to talk about your point, when you start talking about off-platform versus on-platform, what I'm gonna guess is going to see a lot more improvement and a lot more use is retargeting based on platform events.
Yes.
Right, and you brought this up. You right before this call, you brought this up talking about retargeting based on video views, which is not a new strategy.
Yep.
But to explain to you how this works, you who out there is listening, if someone is watching a video on the Facebook platform that you uploaded, Facebook knows and can fully track your behavior, your customers and visitors and viewers' behavior on that, and then you can retarget those people based on those events. The events where we can't retarget as good anymore with as good of accuracy is the events that happen on my website.
Yep.
Right.
So basically what that means is you'll have to. I feel like this is what's going to happen is you'll have to be very good at in-app retargeting and thinking about the entire flow of that. And I also think that there's a couple of changes that are happening on these platforms that are going to impact that. So number one, did you see the update with Instagram that they're going to roll out here soon where they're going to change the option to do chronological based on who you're following?
I did.
I think that's a big indicator that the algorithms are going to have to switch because now since they have way less data, they now need to, I feel like they need to focus heavier on making sure people don't jump ship completely off the platform.
Yeah.
So now they actually are going backwards to Because if you need to do in-app ads, you need people to use the apps.
Right.
And people have been complaining about the algorithm saying, I don't see any of my friends' posts. I just see what you're feeding me.
Yeah.
And that's something that I believe forces people off the platforms.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing stuff they don't really, they're not choosing to see it. It's their Facebook is dictating what they see, right?
Yeah.
Now they're offering that option back. And I feel like that's going to be a big, that to me, that communicates a shift, and they understand they're probably going to have to do a lot more in-app conversions type model. So they need people to stay on.
They need people to not leave the app. And to be fair, that was the goal. That's been their goal all along. The longer people are on their app, the more money they make from advertisers, the more eyeball inventory they can sell advertisers. But I did see that. I mean, Instagram's feed used to be chronological, and then they switched it, claiming, quote, it's going to be better experience. We're going to give you posts. That's
nonsense.
That's corporate. That's marketers speak for we're going to make a whole lot more money by showing you the posts we want you to see and not give you a choice on what you can see. But I feel like Instagram has been feeling the heat from things like TikTok.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And they're reverting back to the old way of things for their people's feed, or at least giving people the option to view their feed that way, and giving them the option to choose how they want to. Am I in a mood right now to explore content that I may not be aware of?
Yeah.
Or am I in the mood right now to only see the content of people I know and want to see that content? And so they're giving people that option to keep them more interested in the platform. I ultimately think that is a good move for most people, though, because I hated when they got rid of the chronological feed. I was like, this is stupid.
I love the and here's the thing. Kind of the irony in all this is there's a podcast that I like to listen to, and he talks about this all the time, which is competition is good. Instagram and Facebook would never do this if TikTok wasn't the #1 visited website last year and growing, right? And this is a good lesson to show you can never believe you're bigger than your customer base, because they will leave the second a better experience or service comes out. And this, TikTok right now, like I remember just 2 years ago, there was almost no one using TikTok.
No. I used to think TikTok was stupid.
Me too. And
I use it a lot now.
And I'm on there. I mean, it might be, to be honest, it's getting close. YouTube's my favorite platform, but TikTok is getting very close because there's a lot of funny stuff on there and cool content. And that's the thing. That's where I feel like these changes are being made to enhance the user experience on their platforms, because they now feel threatened, I feel, because this other platform is gaining so much momentum.
Yeah. So I completely agree with you about, the competition being good. What is interesting, though, is the players are having to play different. And one of the things that I find very interesting with TikTok versus all of the others is from like a business perspective. And I don't know if you're still seeing this, but from a business perspective, I'm still seeing people are struggling big time to monetize TikTok.
Yeah.
I listened to an interview of a guy that has nearly 1 million followers on TikTok, and he was talking about how many views and things he gets on stuff. And he didn't talk about hard numbers, but I kind of went through and looked through his sales funnel from his home screen and everything. I can't imagine this guy is making more than a few $1,000s a month off of his following. Whereas on Instagram, if someone has 1 million followers, I know a few people that have 1 million followers, and again, they don't tell me how much money they make, but they have. I mean, they trade up houses every couple of years to bigger and bigger and bigger homes, and they're driving super fancy cars, and this is literally their full-time thing. They do nothing else other than this. So TikTok as a platform is fantastic, but it's not super mature from the monetizing perspective just yet. But it's definitely one to keep an eye on, and I'm sure it will get figured out.
Someone will figure it out.
I'm sure a few people have figured it out, right? But the other thing I found interesting about the TikTok platform, and we can dive back into tracking, and we wanted to talk about server or cookieless tracking and stuff. But the one thing I found interesting about TikTok with this guy that has 1 million followers on TikTok, he'll have a video that will get 10 million views, and then the next video will get 5,000.
Yeah.
And then the next one will get 500,000. It's almost like the number of followers you have
is irrelevant.
Has zero indication
That's
as
funny
to,
that you
as
see
to
that,
what you're actually going to get view-wise.
Yeah.
And that all has to do with how their algorithm works and everything. But the number of followers you have is a flex.
Yes,
it does give you authority to people's eyes and can be leveraged to monetize in ways, and just say, well, this person has 1 million followers, so they're selling washing machines or whatever. I saw this guy, he's got like 500,000 followers, and he's this local appliance seller in Canada.
Oh, God.
And I love his videos. They're so good.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's the best seller in that area because he has 500,000 followers on TikTok. But anyway, we kind of got off track, but we want to talk about tracking.
Well, it's not necessarily off track, because
Yeah.
we have to talk about, if you're going to go the cookieless world, then in-app experiences is going to play a big role in that.
Big role, yeah.
Content, what type of content is being put out there. And I do think one of the advantages at the moment that TikTok has, and this may be a strategy of theirs, is they are making it easier. There's less limitations to what you can put out in order to get more views. And the regular user that doesn't have a lot of followers can still get a lot of views.
Right.
And so I think that is what hooks more people in, is because the opposite is true on Instagram and Facebook.
Absolutely.
If you have 10 followers, there's no way you're going to get, well, not no way, but the likelihood is very small that you'll get a lot of views, versus on TikTok, you could literally have like 5 followers come up with a video that's pretty good, and you can still get 10,000 views.
Easy.
Right?
Yep.
And so that's where I think that may be a strategy of theirs, is to help people get seen more, because they know the biggest complaint that people have on Instagram is no one sees anything.
No, yeah. If you don't have a ton of followers, no one sees anything. And they tried to fix that with Reels. And you can on Reels. If you've done Reels, you can get with, say you have 1,000 followers, you can get 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 views.
Yep.
But it's not it's harder to amplify that than it is on TikTok. But it's easier to turn it into money on Instagram. So there's
always a trade-off, right?
This trade-off.
Well, let's talk about cookieless tracking, right? So cookieless basically meaning not being able to track people all over the internet.
So let's just real quick tech deep dive on cookies, right? So when someone comes to my website, you're going to have a script set a cookie on the browser. It's literally this little tiny piece of data that sits inside your web browser that can then be send events back to your server. That's not how it really works, but that's how effectively it works for a non-technical person. So, but the thing with cookies is they're very easy to block, right? So you have ad blockers, iOS 14, 15 plus, whatever. They're just blocking any sort of tracking cookies. And they can just have errors with network problems, right? Because the internet feels like it's pretty great, but there's a lot of dropped data packets behind the scenes that can cause problems. So,
and I heard Google Chrome's taking pretty soon it's going to be taking that
absolutely
away.
But Google as an advertiser, Facebook as an advertiser, and a few others have announced that they are going to be moving forward with cookieless tracking. So it is going to be the future. And what does that mean for people? Well, what that means is, for many people, is you're either going to have to do your tracking in-app or using an in-app browser, which TikTok's in-app browser pisses me off.
It's not good?
Well, it won't let you leave it. Meaning, so on Facebook, if I click on a Facebook ad, it opens up in their web browser.
Okay.
But I can click on that, click on the buttons and say, hey, open this up in Firefox on my phone or whatever, right? So if I'm looking at my phone, TikTok's phone browser, you can't do that. They force you to stay in there. I can't copy the URL on anybody's profile pages and open it up in a different browser. So you have to use their browser, and I guarantee you that's because they want to force their tracking.
Oh yeah, because it's going to be in-app.
You're still in-app at that point, even though you're maybe on my website.
That's going to be the new way.
Yeah, and so it's frustrating, but I think that's what they're doing. But then what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of people. You're going to probably need to have a better website hosting server infrastructure to send data back to Facebook and Google and whatever. And what I mean by that, when someone lands on my website, their own web browser on their own computer sends the tracking code and information back to the Facebook's ad platform. But the new way is going to be your web host will send it from server to server, send that tracking information background. But that was going to require that you are on a web host that has those capabilities. So we're going to start seeing that pop up and become more and more and more interesting, because most web hosts don't support that at all right now. That is going to give us much more accurate information when we send this data server to server. Both Facebook and Google already have that capabilities. It's just that most people are on a server platform that doesn't support it.
Got it.
So we're going to see more and more and more of that happening. And so it's not super urgent right now, but people are going, again, this is one of those things where I said people are going to need to reach out to media buyers because it's getting more sophisticated.
Yep.
Well, people are going to need to reach out to more sophisticated hosting platforms, or even companies that do managed services with hosting to set this up properly and manage it properly for them.
What do you think? Here's a question for you then. What do you think? All right, so a lot of the reasons in the past with pixels and what made it effective was not only the targeting, but the optimization, right? So the more data you fed back into the account, typically the lower your cost per purchase would eventually start to become.
Yeah.
What do you think will happen with in-app? Essentially, how do you do that if there's no real information really getting pushed as effectively in the past back into your ad account, because that's where all the optimizations happen? Right.
So I think what people are going to need to do more and more and more is leverage the offline conversions features that is both in Facebook and Google. And what that is for you that may not know is, if I have a list of customers that purchased yesterday, I can essentially upload that list in a CSV file or write some software to push it manually, push that over there with a couple of unique identifiers, their email address, maybe the FBCL ID that gets appended to the URL when someone clicks on a page, send that data back into the Facebook platform, and then you'll be optimizing that way. Also, you'll have server platforms that can optimize. And so the net effect, if you're doing both of those, you might actually get more optimization data than you were with the Pixel.
Yeah.
But there's more setup, more
It's just harder. It's harder to set up.
It's harder.
And to watch it.
Yeah.
It's just not done for you.
The Pixel was you copy and paste some code on your site and it's done. This is another level of sophistication.
Number one, this is like with some of my clients too, like some of them aren't even aware of what a CSV file is.
Right. And why should they have to, why should they, like, they don't necessarily need to know that to run a successful business doing, I don't know, plumbing or something like that, right? And that's why they outsource to people like you or whatever. But yeah, it's...
Well, here's another question for you from the data side. So like companies like a Hyros, how does this impact, if it becomes cookieless, how does that impact a business like that?
So Hyros and companies like Hyros, they all claim to be able to handle cookieless, but none of them really do it. Okay. Hyros runs into the exact same problems. And the reason it worked really well at the beginning was because the cookies weren't noticed as tracking cookies and they weren't blocked yet, because they were a new player out there and they weren't big enough for Apple to care about or for ad blockers to care about. But they still are using cookies and everything. And so what Hyros, if you look at setting up Hyros or some of these other platforms, what they have you do for their quote unquote cookieless support is either build some way to push data directly into their platform from your server, or upload a CSV file of your data into their server. So it's the same. It's the same kind of thing, right?
Offline conversions.
Essentially the same kind of thing, and they handle the conversion tracking a little bit different and probably a little bit better for some use cases than like say Facebook does or whatever. And it's probably a little bit easier to integrate into their system from server to server than it is to maybe Facebook or something like that. I don't know. I haven't actually done an integration. I've looked into it, but they're going to bump into the same problems. And I have looked at their site, and I have seen when I run an ad blocker on Hyros' website,
it'll block it.
It blocks it, and any site that I know that is running Hyros, it will block those transactions. So they're bumping into the same problem.
They're getting too big.
They're getting too big, and they wanted to push the easy button because they needed to onboard enough clients, and copying and pasting some cookie tracking code is the easiest way to get more clients. If you have a sophisticated integration process, you can't onboard a bunch of new clients. And if you're a brand new startup, you need to onboard a bunch of clients before you start becoming cash flow positive. And so they push the easy button. I'm confident they already have plans in the works to have deeper integrations and things for those people that need it, but they're bumping into the same problems.
Well, here's a question, just from like a super high level. All right, so why is there such an anti-tracking issue? Why is it such a big, it seems like one of the challenges with digital marketing is attribution. We've talked about this endlessly. And it seems like anytime a solution comes out, it eventually gets blocked. So my question is, from a high level, philosophical reason, why do you think there is such an issue with the tracking when it comes to the marketing? Meaning, why does each company want to stop or block it?
I think
it's a big question.
And then is a big conversation. I think there's a couple of different reasons. Reason number one, I feel like that it's so that these big companies can try to gain a competitive advantage. So not a lot of people know this, but Apple has its own advertising network. It's specifically for apps and their app store on iOS devices, but they have an advertising network platform. So they very conveniently blocked all of Facebook's ability to track, and then came up with rules that Facebook had to follow in order for them to be partially tracked on the platform. But conveniently, Apple still allows their own tracking cookies on their own 100%. Ad network. Strange, right? And so that's one of the reasons. And here we have two, I don't know what they're worth, $1 trillion companies butting heads, and the consumers are over here saying, I just want my shit to work.
I just want to be able to build my business and know what's working and what's not. That's it.
Yep. And then the other part of why tracking is because in the past, companies, specifically Facebook, we had the whole Cambridge Analytica thing in 2016, where they were very clearly abusing the amount of data that was collected and giving it to their advertising partners to a scary level.
Got it.
And so protections, new legislation came out. Europe launched a whole bunch of new legislation. That's why there's the GDPR. California came up with its own cookie tracking registration or stuff. So there's all these new things that came out because of the abuse of data collection. And really, most people don't know how much data is collected about them by advertisers and then sold to other advertisers. And if most people knew how much data was collected about them, they would probably not feel comfortable with that.
Sure.
But You and I
it's
know
like-
how much it is, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I still want to use Facebook.
It's, what's my alternative, right?
my
To live in a
alternative?
cave and have no
Yeah.
internet and no
Yeah.
access to the way the world works now.
And sometimes that sounds nice, but
But in reality, it's not sustainable.
It's not. In reality, it's not sustainable. So that's kind of the two sides of it. The other thing is like a matter, and this is a little bit of a deep end, going off the deep end here, but it's a matter of custody, right? And what I mean by custody is who owns that data, and are they taking good care of it, right? So if Facebook knows a whole lot about me, where I'm going, because they have GPS enabled on my phone, what stores I'm at,
I know Google
who I'm
knows
talking with, because I'm sitting next to Greg right here
Yep.
for an hour, and our phones are right next to
Yep.
each other. So clearly Greg and I know each other. So it's going to show up hey, do you know Greg?
Yeah.
Next time we see each other, like they know a lot about me, and are they taking good care of that data and making sure that it's secure, so that hackers can't get to it? Are they making sure that they are being transparent about what they're doing with that data, and a few other things, because people have a reasonable right to privacy, but with digital, that line is super
blurred,
fuzzy,
right? Yeah.
And the laws kind of don't catch up with how fast technology advances and how technologically knowledgeable the general population is. And so there's this like gray area where
the really smart people can be steps ahead.
Yes.
And abuse it, right?
And bad actors and bad people could abuse that.
It's kind of like a sporting event where you know the play of the other team, and they don't know that you know that.
Exactly.
And so you can
easily
win doing that. And I guess that's probably the biggest thing. And so I think with this episode, the key changes that I believe will be made from a marketing standpoint is get really good at in-app tracking, get really good at coming up with true media buying, true messaging, and you're just going to have to do things differently and the same at the same time, right? So like you're going to use the same thought process and concepts that you were using before when you had access to all of the tracking outside of the platform, but you just are going to do it within. Right. And so you just got to get really good now at being able to understand what's happening, who to target, and what behaviors indicate that this may happen. So you're going to use a lot of the same thinking patterns.
Yeah.
It's just mostly going to happen within app.
Right. You just need to maybe shift how you're handling retargeting and shift your understanding of how tracking works. And I would say take a big step back, and if you're going to dump a ton of time into something surrounding your marketing, I would spend that time and energy on your marketing message and your offer. Right? Because you're at the end of the day, you're speaking with people. So you want to trigger those emotions that are going to get them to take action. You want to be very clear about not only what features your product or offer has, but what benefits and what that actually means to them and what they want, their hopes and dreams, and helps them run away from their fears and anxieties, and focus on those things. So that's where I would dive my time. And then I would maybe look into kind of outsourcing or offloading some of the technical bits to a consultant or a media buyer or someone that you can do some brainstorming with, and then can help set up the tracking and everything.
That demand is going to go up, I think, big time.
Yeah, I think so. Oh yeah, I definitely think so.
Well, I think outside of that, I guess we will. Blake, how do people get a hold of you if they need to?
Yeah, just go to blakebuse.com, and you can see a couple things I have going on there. I have my SM3 membership, which helps. It's like a group membership where we do 90% done for you kind of content creation, where you kind of puzzle piece the things together. And then trainings and community and challenges and stuff like that. That's the main offer I have right now, and you can just find that at blakebuse.com. And what about you, Greg?
You can just go to gregmarshall.co. And if you need help with any of your marketing, you need a strategy call, just go ahead and book one. And we can hop on and talk about how we can help you. So outside of that, thanks for listening. And we'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah, we'll catch you later.